Hey, mate, let's have a little chat about eye patterns. And I'll happily share that I had a conversation with somebody from Mastermind yesterday, and they said, "Oh, Mark, I can see you when you're on these webinars, and sometimes when Michael's talking and he's not as cognizant of time as you are, I watch you and your eyes sort of go to the left and down, and you're about to see what that's all about." So, Graham, the other part of NLP is in fact eye patterning. I have to say, I found, understanding digital kinesthetic, I found that concept, auditory, much easier than eye patterning. I understand eye patterning, but I found it much harder. And I think it's much harder to continue to practice, I found anyway.
It's a skill. Everything takes practice.
Yeah. So let's talk about, because this is, where I have used this, mate, actually is in interview situations where I ask somebody a question in an interview. And I'll let you work through those images in terms of, constructed versus remembered images.
So imagine you're in an interview situation and you ask somebody a question about something in their past, and they look up and to my right, so their left, then they are remembering something that's happened. So they're answering reasonably good chance they're remembering something truthful. If you ask them to explain something that's happened in the past and they look up into their right or my left, they're possibly constructing an image and they might be making it up from scratch. You can never take any one thing in isolation, but it's a good indicator to, just keep an eye on this.
So they're kind of yellow flags, aren't they? They're not red flags. They're yellow flags. Yep.
Yeah. And again, auditory, if you ask somebody to tell you what somebody said and they look
to their left,
my right, then they're remembering something that they've heard. And if they're trying to explain a book they've read, they might be trying to put something into words if they look the other way. So these are just little tiny triggers to make you notice what they're doing. Mark, you might talk about the internal dialogue section.
So, I mean, when you look down and to your left, it's where you're thinking and you're having a little conversation with yourself. So in this case, somebody said to me yesterday, it's funny because I can tell if Michael's sometimes going over time, which he occasionally does, that, I see you look down to your left, and that is me thinking, geez, at what point can I interrupt him, and how am I going to wrap this thing up and move him on quickly? So somebody picked it up. So it just goes to show that you are completely unaware of these. They're just automatic responses.
They are automatic, and that's why you can use them to help understand the other person. Sometimes you'll find that somebody is saying one thing but doing something completely different. They might not necessarily be telling lies, but they've got an internal turmoil. And when you get into NLP, you can go into parts integration, all sorts of stuff to bring some of those turmoils back together. But it's, as Mark said, and I actually like that, Mark, I'm going to steal that, it's a yellow flag.
Yep.
Because if someone is saying one thing and doing something else, they have an incongruency, and the whole thing's just going to feel wrong. And if you can start to identify where, you might be able to ask them slightly different questions to start to bring out more of the information you need to get to the message behind the message.
That's right. So, I mean, for example, if somebody's looking up to their right, they're potentially constructing an image. So, if at the same time they're saying, now, if I remember correctly, and they're looking up at the same time, there's a flag, because are they remembering correctly, or are they actually remembering not at all, and they're constructing a memory from it? So, I guess,
are they a lefty? Lefties stuff everybody up. This is all for right-handed people.
Right.
And lefties, lefty. This is a little more advanced, but lefties can be completely opposite, but lefties can also swap, just to make it even more complex.
Right. So if you're a Molly Duker, then it even becomes more complex.
Which is why, again, nothing in isolation. You have to dig a bit deeper and find out what else is going on.
Which is also, it just happens to be the great brand of a brilliant wine from McLaren Vale, by the way. If you like your red wines, then Molly Duker is definitely one I recommend very strongly. Hey, mate, that was awesome. I love that, guys. I hope you got some good stuff out of that. I think, Graham, what I really liked, mate, is what you wrapped up with kind of then, is that none of this is in isolation. So we can look at like pattern languages. We can look at mirroring. Caroline says we should have all our meetings with our eyes closed. Caroline, you've watched, read 50 Shades of Grey too many times. And so we can't, and we can look for eye patterns and all of those sorts of, but all they are in every case are just little flags, aren't they, that we have to look globally, because it could be that somebody's saying, let me remember, and it looks like they're constructing an image, but they are in fact either left-handed, or in fact they are just, they're not actually constructing an image. They are actually trying to remember it, and they're being completely honest with you. So you would look for other patterns in it as well. Hey, Trevor writes left-handed and plays sport right-handed. Have we got a chart for me? Yep, we have. I'm just taking that chart and print it twice. First, you'll both. And grab some Molly Duca wine, Trevor. I reckon you'll like that. You should have a.
It's a lot of fun, Trevor, to start watching and start noticing, and from there, just start to notice what's going on around. Start to listen what people are saying. Start to notice if they're speaking visually. Start to notice if they're speaking audibly, but with auditory language rather, or kinesthetic, more touchy-feely person, and just drop in the odd phrase that matches what they're saying, and just see how the rapport builds more quickly. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun, and I think that's the other really important thing that you've pointed out, mate, is that let's keep it as, business has to have a fun element to it, and this is not. There is an enormous amount of neuropsychology behind this. There is solid science behind it. It's irrefutable science. But if you spend all your time just trying to look for this phrase or this language or these eyes or this mirroring or this matching, you're going to lose the whole purpose of what you're doing. But helpful in terms of if you're in a negotiation, helpful in a sales environment, also just to build rapport with your team and your referral partners and people around you.